Hey everyone, I'm back with another one of Dan Drazen's reviews right here, and this one is on 2:30. I'm sorry, 2:30, and he notes that it was released December 2011. So it kind of tells you, according to what this says, how long the Genesis arc lasted, if you know what I mean. So, what's he say here? Well, he says, he comments on, this is basically like a commentary, these reviews. So, his commentary on Ben Bates' cover. Sonic is preoccupied with giving supersized Silver Sonic and Metal Sonic an overdue beatdown while Sally prepares to enter the Avatar state. It's a congested composition, but still impressive. I don't know what the variant cover art provided by Sega is, but I assume it was used in the preview media, unless they're talking about the Ben Bates alternate thumbnails, in which case we'll get to them in the Sonic Spin department. Now, of course, he talks about, he shows what the title of the story is, Two Steps Back, and of course he talks about who the story writer is, Ian Flynn. Of course, the artist Ben Bates, ink Terry Austin, color Matt Herms, lettering John E. Workman, editor Paul Kaminsky, editor-in-chief Victor Golick, roboticizing maintenance of Mike Politro, and of course it's Cindy Chow and Judy Gerberson, oh, how about that, as representing Sega licensing. And again, remember, this is kind of like a commentary, these reviews, so here we go. We get a one-page flashback / revert as Sonic comes up for air after being immersed in the Genesis arc for 4 issues. He doesn't stop to analyze what happened, especially not to ask why he never ran into Bunny and Antoine. Maybe they were getting in some serious honeymoon time after what happened to them in the Trouble in Paradise arc. He then remembers that Sally's walking into a death cheat. Not if, and he capitalizes this, he has anything to say about it. He makes a dash for the corridor of doom, sweeps her off her feet, and gets her past and he puts the first 4 letters of this in caps, Blammer, after signifying to her. Eggman, meanwhile, and he puts this in caps, is not, well, he puts not in caps, is not having a good day. So what else is new? He yells at Snively that the cosmic reset button, I like to think I had something to do with that name, isn't cosmically resetting. Snively can't find anything wrong. Wrong answer. Eggy then takes a moment to remember whom he's dealing with and asks about Stage 2. That, and they capitalize that, the Sniveler says, is good to go. Sonic and Sally arrive at the deck where the World Roboticizer is located, a little before Eggman joins them. When informed of what it can do by Eggman, Sonic plays the last Robian card. The last time there was a global de-robotization, it was for keeps. Eggy then invokes a plot point from the Ancient Princess miniseries, from the Ancient Princess Sally miniseries. When you roboticize something that's already a bot, it explodes. This assumes, of course, that there is some kind of explosive material present. That would be the case with gun bots, like Omega and the United Federation hardware. As for the nanites that make up New Mobotropolis, the story doesn't dwell on them and simply assumes the worst case scenario. Sally counters that he'd be blowing up his Dark Egg legions as well, not to mention giving the rebuilt Linda, the mother of all, bad hair days. Eggman responds with a sounding, so what? Sonic then tries to flatten Eggy's nose, but is checked by Metal Sonic. That bucket of bolts he can handle. But then, like some kind of WWE roadshow, supersized Silver Sonic jumps into the ring. And just like one heel getting the attention of the referee, the other heel could kick the crud out of the face. Eggman gets distracted by the absence of Sally. The momentary lapse is all Sonic needs to trash Eggman's hover whatever. since he figures Sally's off somewhere doing something really important. In fact, she and Nicole below the floor plates hacking into the death egg and scoping out the situation. Credit to the big guy, the defenses of his roboticizer are formidable. The only option Nicole has is to avert the beam to this exact point. Sally tells her to cover her transistor touches and go for it. Her explanation is classic. Since Sonic saved her tail, it must have been for a reason. Sonic is fighting on, Eggman is giving the order to fire, and Nicole gives Sally the great cosmic option. And in capital letters, in all cap, goodbye my friend, execute YN. And with visions of Sonic dancing in her head, she selects Y. In other words, execute yes or no. And with visions of Sonic dancing in her head, she selects yes, Y. In a situation like this, there's no time for Nicole to ask, are you serious? And with a couple of, not are you serious, but are you sure? I'm sorry, there's no time for Nicole to ask, are you sure? And with a couple of varooms and a big old kathroom, Tails observes, getting into touch with his inner Captain Obvious that Sonic and Sally must have done something. That's not the worst line of dialogue for the year, but it's close. It's left to Snively to describe that something power is leaking out all over the death egg. The roboticizer is just plain gone, and Eggman got his goggles blown off and his mustache trimmed. As for Sonic, he suffered shredding of the gloves, but Metal Sonic got the worst of the encounter. The only consolation for Eggman and the shock to Sonic's system is the appearance of Metal Sally, or Mecha Sally. Let me check my time here. Okay, plenty of time. Okay, so let's do the head score here, shall we? This is Dan Drazen, of course. This is his head score. Well, there you have it. The death cheat in Sonic 225 proved to be just that. Kudos to Ian for the cheat, which is basically a version of traveling back in time, which usually doesn't work that good. And it only took, what, 4 issues of the comic to set it up? Which, let's face it, is not that all out of place in a comic book, which is true. For that matter, neither is the proposition that a roboticized Mobian is some kind of bomb. It reminds me of the episode from Time Office where Michael offhandedly suggests that clearly work is as risky as working in a warehouse because you could blow up a computer. Fact, computers or any piece of consumer electronics can only blow up if there's something explosive inside them. That's why the Legionnaires with the exploding dreads could do some damage. Same thing with any gun ordnance like Omega, no big loss there. The nanites are another matter. Why would they even be made of explosive material? Bottom line, the threat of destruction sounds cool at first, but the more it's analyzed, the more just plain improbable it sounds. Excuse me for a second. I don't know who that is, folks. I apologize for that. But anyway, getting back to this, what was I? Oh yeah. But the more it's analyzed, the more just plain improbable it sounds. But since that would bring the story to a screeching halt, the story falls back on one of the oldest conventions in comic book storytelling. Ignore the facts and keep moving. Basically, that's what it is. Let me check my time again here. Okay. Ooh, I hate when that happens. And keep moving. At this point, the story needs a diversion. So we get the old school slugfest between Sonic and his two metallic alter egos, Metal and Silver. This frees up Sally to talk to Nicole and set up the story's heart moment and it's a doozy. But more on that later. Next question. Next question is, what about the loose threads left behind since 225 and the Death Egg setup? There's a political intrigue within Mobius. Nog is making a play for the throne, if not the hearts and minds of Mobians, and I'm still waiting for a straight answer concerning Hershey. I understand that according to the doctrine of loose continuity, not all these issues will be addressed in the impending story arc. If they all somehow find their way into the new story arc, it would be as dense as a fruitcake and just as nutty. The main thing, though, is that Sally's back in circulation with a very broad hint in the spin zone as to when Sally will rejoin the world of the organics. And the Sonic and Sally shippers breathe a sigh of relief. Head score 5. I score. Great artwork from Ben Bates, taking a page from Ian's playbook by using page layouts that aren't simply grids. The curves on page 3 are a very dynamic example, and the lighting when Sally enters goodbye, though it's probably more like ta-ta for now, is equally impressive. Props to Matt Holmes for the coloring job on that. I score 10. Now, we get to the heart portion of this. Some months ago, in a piece of fan art, Sally asked in a fan drawing why she was the fall guy. That designation was in keeping with what happened to her in Sonic 47, also a reference to the fact that fall from a great height as a cause of death has been used more than once in Disney films. Gaston in Beauty and the Beast, Charles Munson Up. It also highlights the passive nature of the threats against Sally. In Endgame, Sally was rappelling down Robotnik's HQ when the rope was cut. Just 5 issues ago, she scurried into a hallway and into the path of a blammer. Neither death cheat was what you called heroic. Well, that gets undone in a major way here. This time, Sally takes one for the team, heck, for the planet. No matter how preposterous the exploding Robian scenario might be, feel free to blame Ken Penders for it if you like, Sally figures out a way to prevent it from happening, even at the cost of her own, well, not life, exactly, and he puts quotations on life. It's not even a permanent solution, since editor Paul Kaminsky drops a reference to, and he puts this in quotations, the road to 250. One of the problems I have with this comic is the timing of special events every 25 issues. They feel that something major has to happen. This is a regulatory that borders on numerology. I don't mind stuff happening in the comic. I do mind making the plot and story pacing a slave to release schedule. It feels like the same thing is happening with Sonic Universe. 4 issues per arc, no exceptions. Sure, it makes it easier to repackage them as collections and market them, but if you only have 3 issues, sorry about that, I like to keep taking my thing. If you have 3 issues worth of story, it's a disservice to pad out for no good reason. The Inside Job arc. So not only will Sally survive in her robo form, there's every reason to believe she'll be back to her furry self in 20 issues. I don't know how, but I can only hope it'll make sense. Get that right, and the artwork can take care of itself. For the time being, there's no telling whether anything Sally does as a bot is being done of her own free will or not. Hey, if they could play games with the action in this comic, I can play games with the interpretation. I can only hope that the writers pause to do something, capitalized, with the setup. Okay, I keep checking, I'm sorry about that. With the setup, Ian tried to give Sonic and Sally a romantic interlude in 222 before the storm clouds gathered. He succeeded about as well as could be expected. But I'm not ruling out making the storyline a slave to the action and more action dicrum. Steel, and I'll be back in a second.